Hello and welcome everybody, Marco here again for another one. I hope you're all well. I wanted to start this one by just clearing up a couple of mistakes I made on my cold bore Lite video. I did a little video on the 60 CL Lite that cold bore came out with, and I bought two of them. I had commented that the little lever that you use for tightening the elbow to attach the light to a light stand, they provide these little elbows, actually very well made. And I had made a comment that the little lever for tightening the elbow was made of plastic. In fact, it is not. It's made of aluminum. On closer inspection, not long after I made that video, I realized I had made a mistake. So good on you, cold bore, for making that aluminum. That would have been my first choice, and that's what you did. Another thing about that was I also said that it was a bad idea that they used sort of a proprietary mount for attaching that elbow to the light. Well, it's not really proprietary after all. It's actually a standard NATO mount. I wasn't even thinking that it was a NATO rail that they had on the light itself. It is in fact a NATO rail, not very common on lights. Actually, I've never seen it before, but they use those NATO rails to do that thing I was talking about in that video where you can attach the lights together into these banks, which in my opinion is ingenious. So another thing that I probably shouldn't have brought up as something negative. Although you can't use any elbow to attach to that light, it doesn't really matter. Cold bore provides a really nice one. The only downside I saw to that little attachment was the fact it didn't have anything for an umbrella. And cold bore actually dropped in to watch that video as well, although they didn't make any comments about my mistakes. So if you haven't gathered from the title, this one is about EVFs, or more accurately, cameras that don't have one. Any of you who are like myself, who bought an FX30, were probably a little bit apprehensive about going to a camera that doesn't have an EVF, since most cameras do. Of course, there are other Sony cameras that don't have EVFs. Maybe you've gone to one of those cameras, but that was one of the biggest sort of sticking points I had in my decision, was whether or not I was going to be able to live without one, because the A7C that I had before, of course, has an EVF, although it was small. Did have an EVF, and I was using it quite often, so but the lack of an EVF was one of those things that I was kind of worried about, and I did a video all about no regrets buying the FX30, going from the A7C, and I don't regret it. Would it be nice to have an EVF still? Sure it would be, but I wouldn't want to sacrifice the form factor of the camera to have one. So most of us, of course, have had experiences with a camera that doesn't have an EVF, and that would be our phones. Back in 2000, a company came out with a phone that had a camera in it. It was a huge thing. So Sharp was the one who came out with that phone in 2000. And Sharp was quite an innovator, actually. Now, we don't really think of Sharp as really doing all that much, but they're still a huge player in the display market. But at one time, they were a real innovator. They had actually the first microwave with a turntable in it. In '78, they were the first company to have a TV with the picture-in-picture in it. And it was in 1966 that they did the microwave. So they had all kinds of innovations. So what am I building up to here? So long before Sharp had a phone with a camera in it in 2000, they did something else pretty revolutionary. They came out with another camera that doesn't have an EVF. And that was this, back in 1992. This is the Sharp ViewCam, and it was a huge hit. The reason it was a huge hit was Sharp was going after a completely different demographic that was completely new to making home movies. Very approachable, because it had this huge friendly screen on the back. And if you could imagine a vlogger in the 1990s, they'd be using one of these, because it has a flip screen. It has some little quirks I'll get to later, but it does have this flip screen, and it is very, very comfortable from a usability perspective. It's got an awesome menu system. It's got the zoom on top, which we all know it means 40 times worse than regular quality, basically, because it's a digital zoom. So if you look at the form factor of this thing, how you're holding it on both sides like this, it's not really far off of a modern camera like shooting with the FX30 nowadays. So Sharp was really onto something when they came out with this camera, and they sold a ton of these things. There's a bunch of them on eBay now. If you go actually any online marketplace, you'll find a lot of these still for sale. And until recently, you were able to even get them used on Amazon for like a couple $100. Now, why would somebody spend a couple $100 on a camera from the 1990s? Well, there are a couple reasons. One of them would be maybe just to get a retro look, a very genuine retro look, because you're shooting with an old camera. Another would be to convert old Video 8 tapes over to digital with like a capture card or something like that. And that is actually how I came to have this camera, because my dad had some Video 8 tapes that he shot with the camera that he had for a very short period of time, because it wasn't long afterwards that he moved to the digital tapes, the DV tapes. So Video 8 is just an 8mm sized analog VHS tape, like you would have seen in those big tapes that you'd put in a VHS machine or a VCR. That would be one reason why someone would buy one of these. And it's very convenient actually to use for converting tapes over because of that screen on the back, where you're able to review footage while you are running it into your capture card. So there's something I've been looking forward to for a while, at least since I got this camera for converting tapes over for my dad, and that's to shoot a chunk of one of these episodes with this camera to show all of you what a YouTuber of the 1990s might have looked like if that was at all possible. Anyway, it's time to go back to the future and check it out. So welcome to YouTube of the 1990s. How are we looking? I bet I look like crap. As far as what I can see right now, things look pretty good, but of course I'm reviewing this on a standard definition monitor. I've got the whole camera twisted, which that's the awesome thing about this camera. You can twist the whole thing so the lens is on the same side as the LCD, so in a selfie mode. It's pretty cool. I'm reviewing my video much like I would on my little Portkeys monitor over here. It's just a little bit narrower, but about the same height. Which is very cool. Now, to get this similar look as I would normally get, I had to crank my lights up a little bit more, because this sensor does require a little bit more light. But apart from that, it's not too different an experience as far as shooting this. Now, I'm not going to use the onboard microphone in this camera, that's for sure. I'm not going to torture you guys that badly. I'm recording audio externally, and then I'm going to sync it. Now, I probably could have figured out a way to get that audio into this camera directly. Mind you, I don't know what the preamps are like in this camera, so anyway, I thought that I would spare you the crappy audio, and so I'm recording it externally, and then I'll sync it. Hopefully I'll do a decent job syncing it. So there you go. So welcome back everybody from my 1990s vlog. I was able to successfully bring everything back apart from my hair. So as I said, this was actually a pretty usable camera. The ability to flip the screen over was really nice, as I had said. What I hadn't anticipated was the fact that I was going to have to turn that picture around 180 degrees. I don't know why. I thought the camera would be smart enough to know I had the thing upside down, but no big deal. You know, in post I was able to fix that. So the Sharp View Cam, if you've got a capture card for your computer and you've got some old videotapes that you need to convert over to digital, this is a great way to do it. Especially with that screen on the back, it's really nice reviewing stuff on this before you convert it over. So really, really nice. And of course, if you want the authentic 1990s video camera look, there's really no substitute for having a 1990s video camera, right? Would you want to spend $200 on one of these? Probably not. And you don't have to. If you're patient and you're watching eBay, you can get one for like $100. I think that's what I paid for this one. And it's in fantastic shape. The guy actually I bought this from, he owned a shop where he was selling used electronics, and he actually still had the service receipt from the owner previous to him, and this was serviced just before he bought it from that person. So everything is in complete working order. I'm not sure if you get lucky like I did, but I think with patience there shouldn't be a problem finding one of these. The reason that I have this turned on is actually to show you the way the tapes come out of this. That little button here, you just slide it over and that releases the door, and then automatically this comes up, pops the tape out. Now you've got to be patient and let it do that. There's the tape, And this is important because you can damage these putting them back in improperly. So once you've got the tape back in there, you just squeeze these together and just let it do its thing before you close the door. And then close it. And there you go. I probably had more fun doing this than you guys did watching it. If you got anything out of this, please throw me a thumbs up. If not, that's okay too. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of these, please consider subscribing and turning your notifications on. If you've had any experiences with these, or maybe your new camera doesn't have an EVF and you're frustrated and you're not as happy with your camera as I am with my FX30, let me know about it. Your views about EVFs, you know, feel free to tell us in the comments below. Anyway, until next time, keep working to make your chosen idea a reality. Peace.